I'm going to keep you guys here for a little bit, and because we're going to get back to the bad chart in a second. So in these groups, we're going to kind of brainstorm some ideas. But just to kind of bring this back up, this was a chart that Mark had and Jen referred to around, the qualities of essential questions. And that lesson started with an open-ended question that was generated by a student. And if we went through 1 through 7, we may not necessarily be able to say that all 7 of those things happen within that little snippet of the video. But I think we could say that many of them did. And so they were supposed to be doing, 4th or 5th grade work, but this idea of the important transferable ideas and knowing that, understanding the placement of positive and negative number lines and how it relates to absolute value, that is definitely an idea that's going to transfer to their later learning in mathematics. And I'm the math girl, right? So of course I'm going to talk about math, but one of the chapters that is in the book talks about implementation challenges. And one of the challenges that they talk about in the book is that math is a challenge, meaning it's sometimes very difficult to come up with some great essential questions around the area of mathematics. And so it's not just because I'm a math nerd that I'm the one talking about this, it's because it is one of the challenges. We've had great examples already around science, we've had great examples already for English, but what does this look like, or what could this look like in mathematics? And I'm not saying that I have all of those answers for you, but certainly some ideas. This is an example of a Smarter Balanced assessment item, and it's a 3rd grade math question. So I'm not sure if you can see it all the way in the back, so I'm just going to read it through real quickly. Nikki has 4 packs of pencils. Each pack contains 15 pencils. In each pack, 5 pencils are blue, and the rest are green. Create a bar graph to show how many of each color pencil Nikki has. Click on the graph to show where the top of the bar should go. So we've seen these kind of questions. And do I have any 3rd grade teachers in here? Okay, so for me, I don't know a ton about 3rd grade, but I think that this would be a pretty horrific question for a 3rd grader to answer. So you have some beginning of multiplication in there, perhaps, but then you also have addition and subtraction. It's kind of multi-step that the kids are going to have to go through to find the answer to this problem, and then to put it on a graph. So you're finding an answer, then you're putting it on the graph. We've seen these. We've seen all the big, ugly, scary problems from Smarter Balanced. And so I won't spend a ton of time on that because I think we can build essential questions around this with less problem than we can in some of the other areas. However, when we look at how our standards are structured for math, there are some ideas in there that actually could help with, especially with this idea of a big idea that transfers across grades, if we kind of know where to look in the standards. So I put this up here, and I didn't hit copy 1,000 times just to see if you were paying attention. These are cluster headings that are above the standards. They're the part of the standards that we don't always attend to, because we're just looking at, I just need to know what it is that I'm responsible for teaching in my grade. But above those standards, there are what they call in math these cluster headings. And so you can see this idea of place value and how it moves from 1st to 2nd to 3rd to 4th to 5th. And why this is important, and the fact that it's written the exact same way, is you can write a pretty great essential question that not only transfers and you go back to often within your grade, but you could say, how does place value understanding help me know how to answer my math questions, whether I'm doing adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. How this represents a game changer is, do you see this little footnote right here at 3rd grade? So in 3rd and 4th grade, actually it's in 4th grade, but in 3rd grade is the grade that they're supposed to start using algorithms. And in my world, algorithms are what shuts down big ideas, or big essential questions. Because we put that abstract right in front of kids, and that really gets us directly to this very detailed, very focused place in mathematics, instead of the more open and inclusive type conversations that we can have around strategies to solve problems. If we move right to that algorithm, we get very closed very quickly, which is where we're at now, which is why it's hard to write essential questions in math, because we only focus in on those skills. The way that this particular standard reads is it's only in 4th grade that students, the standard actually reads, students will be able to fluently use the algorithm to do multi-digit addition and subtraction. If I were to guess, though, kids are being asked to use that algorithm probably starting in 2nd grade because of a lack of understanding about what these standards are telling us around the big ideas in math. So without belaboring this too much, I would think about when I'm going back into my math classroom and what kinds of questions that I would ask. Read those standards carefully because there are opportunities to write essential questions in a way that actually is a more inclusive way and allowing kids to deeply understand mathematics and understanding these ideas of place value and how place value transfers across 6 grades in their work with just understanding number in general and then how to do operations with that number. And so the standards previous were not really written in that way. And the assessment, this is another 3rd grade question, will actually follow that. So notice that these numbers are not lined up, not indicating to this 3rd grader that they have to use an algorithm to do this, where they cross off numbers and put little baby numbers and then remember where the 1 goes and what it means every time. All they really want the kids to do is to subtract those numbers. And so if a kid can use place value understanding to make the exchanges in the places where they need to make exchanges, then they should be allowed to do that. Now, in 4th grade, will those numbers be lined up and will there be kind of an expectation that they will have to use that procedure very efficiently and effectively? Certainly. But that's only after 5 years of working on strategies and building an understanding of place value. So that's just kind of my little spiel about math is hard because we're kind of in this place of understanding this is what math has looked like for us in the past. And it's going to look different moving forward, and we need to kind of allow for that. There's this quote in the book that I think is pretty powerful, and I think that this group over there kind of hit the nail on the head, is that we all want our classrooms to be this place where we have great dialogue, and kids are diving in, and they're debating each other, and they're creating an argument and providing evidence. But sometimes we accidentally pose questions that elicit a yes or no, that we really want to just move on to the next thing, and so we're looking for that right answer, or we know which kid to go to when we need that right answer so that we can move on. And so the whole cusp of your day today, or the whole big idea for your day today, has been how do we utilize essential questions and classroom dialogues to kind of change the rules in our classrooms. But changing them can be kind of uncomfortable, right? So there's this cute anecdote. Here's the quote in the book, but there's this anecdote that I'm going to read for you. And I'm going to try my best to pretend like I'm an actress, and I'm not, so just kind of bear with me. So you're actually brave enough to try one class of teaching by inquiry. You prepare for the big day. You have a problem ready to start the class. That problem, you pose that problem, you wait for an answer. 3 seconds later, you begin to panic. Your hands sweat. The class just stares at you dumbly. Calm down. Students need more time to think. They need time to digest the very notion that you actually want them to think. They need time to figure out what the question meant and also whether they dare stick their necks out in a response. Wait. Smile. Don't you dare glance at your wristwatch. Stare expectantly at 1 or 2 students that you normally count on to be ready. Don't nudge them a little bit with your smile. Wait. Don't say a word. Smile expectantly. Wait. In 2 or 3 hours, someone will offer a tentative response. Should you be able to sneak a glance at the time, you will find that those 2 hours were really 40 seconds. Glory be, the student who speaks up gives the correct response, right out of the text. In sheer gratitude, you want to shout, "Good for you! That's right, I knew I could count on you." Don't you dare. Don't you dare tell that student that the answer is right. Don't you dare deny the class the fun of thinking, deciding, and judging. Instead, you turn, lay that delight on some other student. Do you agree with that? Shock. Many students have never been asked that before. The students will survive. You will live through it. With a bit of patience and practice, both you and the students will learn to discuss an issue, to question an assumption, to define a word, to explore alternatives, to gain the skills students need for thinking. Since you already know how to do this, your job is simply to learn to be quiet. I thought that was a great little anecdote that was in this book that I wanted to be able to share with you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of branch into the other part of our chart. We're going to take a look at, okay, so let's say someone comes into your classroom and you kind of are getting the feedback, whether it's verbal or nonverbal feedback, that things are not going well in your classroom. What I would like you to do is to kind of brainstorm some ideas. Take a look at the chart that's closest to the table that you're sitting at, whether it was your chart or not, about let's pretend these are the things that you see when you go into your classroom. What suggestions would you want to hear or would you want to give if this is what you saw in a classroom to help that teacher grow in becoming better at these questioning strategies? So to kind of help you with that, there's two other resources. You have the handout in front of you with some of your own ideas that you took, the conversations that you had. There's an additional sheet in there that's pretty valuable, and it's the handout 5. It talks about planning for effective questionings. You know, Mark gave you a text set, so I feel obligated to do the same. So the other piece to have you look at is in the Essential Questions book on pages 70 to 74. They have this kind of chart that goes through, this is what it could look and sound like for kids when things are going wrong, and here are some suggestions that you might want to think about. So as the groups where you're at, if you could take the bad chart off wherever it's hanging and kind of brainstorm some ideas of feedback that you would want to give. Either you would want to give a teacher or you would want to hear as a teacher if you felt like this was something that was happening in your classroom. And then we're going to kind of report out some of those ideas.